they do send me home, I'm close to the hospital. And it was just like, I felt nothing. I felt no pain. I was fine. And then it just was like, bam, baby's head is coming out. It was crazy.
Welcome to Entry Level Moms. We have a special guest today. My name is Suya.
Hi, I'm Nazra. Hope you guys have been enjoying our previous videos. Today we have a special guest. And drum roll, please.
Hi. So my name's Mia, and we're just going to talk about my pregnancy and my birth story, my labour story, because mine was, obviously I've heard you guys's, and mine was the opposite. I had the fastest labour. It was like out of nowhere. I booked a hotel room because I thought they were going to send me home. And my house, like the hospital that I chose was one that my mum worked at. So it was on the other side of London. And I was like, oh, let me book a hotel. So if they do send me home, I'm close to the hospital. And it was just like, I felt nothing. I felt no pain. I was fine. And then it just was like, bam, baby's head is coming out. It was crazy.
Let's do labour story. Oh so my god.
Yeah, so do labour story, or we could do like, also like I actually had a lot of miscarriages before this pregnancy. So that was a big thing for me, because obviously during my pregnancy I was very anxious.
Yeah.
I was worried about everything. I was just like, I couldn't really believe that it was happening for me. And I was like, so that had quite, I mean, I really enjoyed pregnancy, but I was so on edge. I was thinking like, I can't be this lucky. I can't be this lucky. And then, but my miscarriages were all quite early on. Yeah. So they were all in the first 12.
Yeah.
And I was offered genetic testing, but I was so fearful of what they would find. I decided not to do the genetic testing because I was like, oh my God, they're gonna tell me I can't have kids. So I never actually did the genetic testing. So I just basically decided, me and my partner decided, like, we need to just forget about it and not think about it. So we just stopped, and like we went on holiday, we just were like chilling, and then I got pregnant, and I knew from the beginning of that pregnancy that it felt different than the others. So like with the other pregnancies, my positive tests would not show up straight away. You know, like when you have your missed period, it would say negative for at least like sometimes up to 14 days after. I would still be getting negatives. And then finally I would get like a positive, but it would be quite faint. So when I got pregnant this time, my positive showed up straight away. Yeah. And I felt like a lot of symptoms. So I kind of knew that it was different than the others. Yeah. And I just instinct, like, this one feels like it's right, like it's gonna work out for me. Whereas the others, I knew, even though I didn't want to believe it, I knew from the get-go that there was something wrong.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like you kind of know. And I can imagine like, for your successful pregnancy, like you feel like you can't even fully enjoy the experience because you're probably really anxious about what's going to happen. That makes sense. I can't imagine how the first 12 weeks were like, because you're just, not like you're waiting for something to happen, but you're just like, let's just get through this first trimester kind of thing.
Yeah. And the weird thing about my miscarriages was that they all pretty much ended on the exact same day. So it was like, it got to a certain day or a certain number of days after, I guess, like conceiving, and then they would just stop. The first one was like a delayed miscarriage. So I want to say it was like, I think it was around 2 or 3 weeks that I was walking around and nothing was happening. Like it was not coming out. So I had to get a surgery. The surgery obviously was not nice. And I remember feeling really, really upset because I went to sleep like with a baby and then woke up and it had just kind of been done for me. And then I found the first one really difficult. It took me around, I would say, a year to really like move past it. And then after that, it took me 4 years to get pregnant again. And when I finally got pregnant, I had 2 miscarriages like back to back, one after the other. And I found that the natural miscarriages were easier to manage. Like psychologically, it was less painful for me doing it naturally than having like the surgery done, because it's like it's invasive and you just go to sleep with something and then you wake up and you're just like, oh my god, it's gone, that's it, and like I'm not pregnant anymore. So the second ones that I had, they were literally one after the other. I had one in July and then I had the next one in November, and one of them was they suspected that it was twins because my HCG levels were getting like really high really quickly, but there was something wrong. And a lot of the time when I would go for the scans at the early pregnancy unit, they were like unable to even see where it was. So there was like always a fear, oh, is it ectopic and stuff like that. So my journey like with getting pregnant and then finally having a healthy pregnancy was really, really tough. And I remember there like certain hospitals that I went to, the nurses or like the first woman that told me that I was having a miscarriage was so blunt and so rude. I was just in shock, like, oh wow, is this how you really tell someone that like do you know what I mean? I remember like it was a lady, she was scanning me. This was the first pregnancy, and it had been like a week after or 2 weeks after my first scan, and I came back, she scanned me and she didn't say anything. She was looking at the screen, she started to make these weird faces, and I just knew like, why does she look like that? And then she just turned to me and she went, you're having a miscarriage. Like that was it. And I was like, what? And she was like, there's no growth, you're having a miscarriage. And I was just like,
just straight
to
the point. She couldn't even like
straight to the point. It was so unsympathetic. There was no like, I'm really sorry,
that's horrible,
but your hasn't like grown. It was so blunt. I was in shock. And then my partner as well was just like, no, we want someone else to scan like and double check. So they got somebody else, and she was much nicer and she did agree. And then they were like, we just need to see what happens, like will it happen naturally? They said come back in a week. I went back a week later, I had another scan, it was completely the same. And then they were like, because it hasn't come out on its own, we need to think about like giving you an ERPC surgery. So I remember at the time I was like, I don't want to, what I was envisioning was like, oh my God, I'm going to be at work one day and it's just going to happen. So I agreed. I was like, let's just do the surgery because at least I can just have it over and done with.
yeah.
But I feel like it is easier to if your body lets it happen naturally, it is a lot easier psychologically to get over it, because you can be at home, you can be comfortable, like your body's like expelling it on its own.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Were you prior to the first time you got pregnant, were you ever on like birth control?
So I had been a lot, like many years earlier, but I used to use microgynon, and then when I would take it, I just had a lot of like side effects to it. So I stopped taking it, and then I started to just use like a period app where I would track my period, and like I would be able to tell when I was like fertile or not. So I kind of just did it that way after. But yeah, the only time that I really used it was like, I would say I stopped taking it around 2 years or 1 year before I had the first pregnancy.
Because I heard like stories of like people who were taking birth control and then they decided that they wanted to have a child and they stopped taking the birth control, and then the first time they got pregnant after that was like a miscarriage because the embryo couldn't continue growing. So I thought maybe that would, like it's like a correlation, it must happen.
The only thing that I was told as well was that I had heart-shaped uterus. So like it wasn't, you can, so if you Google it, like it's called a bicornuate uterus, and it kind of looks like a heart.
Wow.
And that can make it difficult if your uterus is like that. I think if like the implantation happens somewhere where it's not going to grow properly because there's not enough space, like with the shape. So one lady told me I had that, and then the next time I got scanned, the woman was like, no, you don't have that. And then another lady was like, no, you do have it, but it's not as like, the shape is a bit wider than normal. She was like, but it is still heart shaped. And my mum actually has the same condition.
Interesting.
So I feel like maybe it's just like a genetic thing, like I just got it, and it might have affected like me having trouble with the pregnancies.
Wow.
I don't even know where to start,
Like, me too. Like, yeah, wow.
Because
so I feel like we can put this in the video, because it is really, what I found is like so many people I know now have had miscarriages.
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of people don't really want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But then because we don't talk about it, you don't realize how common it is. So like in my friend group, almost every single one of us at some point have had a miscarriage.
wow.
And it's just super common, and it's like not spoken about enough. So like there are all these girls or women getting pregnant and thinking like it's going to be it's just like, oh, I'm pregnant, it's great. And you get super excited because nobody's told you like it's actually very fragile and it's very early and things can be wrong.
Yeah.
Especially
So I
that
think
first
it's
time.
good, like obviously it's a very personal thing, but I do think it's good to speak about amongst women, just because it is, like it can happen to anyone. You could have 3 healthy pregnancies and then have a 4th one where you have a miscarriage.
Yeah.
There was a woman at the clinic that I went to, the early pregnancy unit, and she had 12 miscarriages before she had a healthy pregnancy.
Oh my goodness, 12.
Wow, I can't even imagine how that would affect someone's mental health. Like,
it's such a horrible feeling. I remember as well, like just really feeling like such despair, like, oh my God, I'm never gonna have one. I'm never gonna have a healthy baby. And then when we finally decided like, okay, let's stop thinking about it, let's just leave it, let's just like live our lives and enjoy it for a while, and then like we'll come back to this, because I wasn't ready to do the genetic testing. I was too like fearful of what they would find. So we just decided to like just live our lives like normal, just do some fun stuff, go on holiday. And it was when like I went on holiday, I came back, and then the funny thing is, like when I went on holiday, I took a what do you call it, a contraceptive pill, because I didn't want to have my period on the holiday, and I hadn't been using them for a really long time. So I took these like progesterone, I think they were progesterone only pills, while I was on holiday, so I wouldn't have my period. And when I came back, that's when I got pregnant. So some people thought like maybe the reason that I got pregnant was because I had like extra hormones or something from the pill, and then stopping the pill. So I took it for like 5 days while I was on holiday, and then I basically got pregnant straight away after that.
interesting.
So I don't know if that could have like contributed to me being able to get pregnant easier that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and then my pregnancy, when I finally got pregnant, I was obviously like straight away being seen at the early pregnancy unit. And I remember like my partner had to work and he wasn't able to come with me. So I took my friend with me, and I didn't even want to look at the screen. And I was saying to the woman, like, I didn't want to look. And she was scanning me, and I just said to her, I was like, is there something there? Because usually like they couldn't see anything. It would take them a long time to locate where the pregnancy was. And so she was scanning me, and I was just like, is there something there? And she was like, yeah, there's something there. And I was like, does it look normal? And she was like, it looks really normal. And then I was just like, oh my God, And then I was telling her, I was like, I really felt like this one would be okay. But even though I felt it instinctively, I was still nervous that, like, what if there's something wrong?
Yeah.
So after that, I think I just went back whenever I felt like, I think I went there maybe 3 times. And then after that, they were like, you don't need to come anymore because everything seems normal. So I had quite a few scans in the beginning. I think I had a scan at 4 weeks, and then I had a scan at 6 weeks, and then I had a scan at 9 weeks. And the growth was always good and everything looked normal. So after that, I just stopped and I did my normal, like just the 12-week scan and the 20-week scan.
Wow. So your partner must have been over the moon.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was like we'd wanted it for so long, and finally, but he wasn't still a little bit nervous as well,
Yeah.
just because of like it was kind of, but he was so good. Like any little thing that I wanted, any little craving. I remember one time at like 1 a.m. I woke him up, and I didn't even need to say it, and he just looked at me and he was like, "You want a burrito, don't you?" And I was just like, "Yeah." But yeah, no, he was so excited.
I didn't have any cravings, you know, like at all.
Yeah, my cravings were really weird. Like my sickness in the beginning was a lot. I couldn't eat meat at all. I couldn't even look at meat. Like if I went shopping, the like raw meat aisle, I couldn't walk down there because if I even looked at it, it would make me sick.
Me too.
Yeah, I was like vegetarian for half of my pregnancy because I just couldn't with meat. And then I had like cravings for sour stuff. So I would have to, while I was at work, I just had to have like sour candy. And then these like apples, the green ones, I think they're called Granny Smith apples. They're really sour. I used to eat those like all the time.
Wow.
And then, but do you know what as well? I used to randomly crave like really unhealthy food. So
Like
I would want like chicken and chips or McDonald's or something.
Yeah.
I had a Mackey's craving as well.
And I was just like, I don't know why my body wants this, but it wants it. So
I was stupid enough to go to this Indian restaurant. Do you remember Eat Out to Help Out? Yeah, that's what I was in my first trimester, yeah. And we went to an Indian restaurant and I decided to eat a spicy curry.
Oh my God.
And on the way home, my sister was driving me. I vomited all over myself and the car, and like she had to she had to stop near this bus stop here, and I opened the door and I vomited outside and people were looking at me like I was a weird drunk girl or something. I don't know.
Oh my God.
After that, I was like, I'm so dumb. Why did I eat spicy food? Because I normally eat spicy food in it. I didn't think anything was wrong with it. But
yeah,
mum was like, avoid spicy food when you're pregnant. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? So that was something that I learned straight away. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna stay away from the spicy food until the baby comes out. So, Mia, do you wanna continue where you were before?
Oh yeah, so 20-week scan. So I was convinced that I was going to have a girl. I actually found out at my 12-week scan what I was going to have, because I asked the guy and I was like, can you tell yet what you think it's going to be? And he said yes. And I was like, honest, or like, how sure percentage wise? And he was like 70% sure.
Oh, I didn't
so
know
I
you
was
could
like,
do that.
Me too.
I was like, okay. And then I asked my partner, I was like, do you want to know? And he was like, yeah, I want to know. So he told us, and he was like 70% it's a boy. And obviously I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm having a girl. So I didn't really believe it. And then when I got to my 20-week scan, she confirmed that it was going to be a boy. And I remember actually, like, I used to think like I didn't want a boy, and then I got really excited about having a boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was odd, like, because I usually at the 12-week scan they don't say anything.
Yeah.
But maybe because I asked him, he just thought, oh, let me just tell her.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I genuinely thought I was having a boy. And then when I found out, because I was having like almost like I was kind of imagining myself as a boy mom, right?
Yeah.
Like I was envisioning a boy. And then
Yeah.
when it was confirmed that it was a girl, I had to
Readjust.
reframe my whole I had to like reframe my whole brain and
Yeah.
keep reminding myself it was a girl. Did you go through that as well?
Yeah. So, because I remember thinking that I was having a girl, and I was like, I was thinking of like girl names, and I was thinking of like silly stuff like, oh, how I would decorate her room and stuff like that. And then when I found out I was having a boy, at first, at the 12-week one, I was kind of like, oh no, I don't really believe it. I still think I'm having a girl. And then when it was confirmed to be a boy, I was really excited, because I was like, actually, it will be really nice, because my most of the family are girls, and most people around me have had girls. So I was like, it'll be really nice to have a little boy.
Oh.
But yeah, I
Had
after the 20-week scan, I booked like a private one, because I wanted to get that 4D scan done.
Oh.
Do you know where I booked it with? I got it on Groupon. It was really cheap. It was like £59.
Nice.
So that's a good
one
tip.
as
If
well.
if you're pregnant and you want to get like a 4D scan, check on Groupon and Voucher, because sometimes they have them really cheap.
I would never think to go on Voucher.
Yeah, it's actually, so when I found it, I was like, oh my God, I'm booking this.
It's
So
crazy.
yeah,
I
I got really amazing pictures and even videos of the baby moving like
Wow.
inside.
Without the
It
group
was
on,
really
it would be
cool.
ridiculous.
Yeah, without the Groupon, it would be like over, I think it would be like £170 at least.
Yeah, because I did the 3D scan as well. It
Yeah.
didn't really come out that great, because she was having one of those moments where she just didn't want to be seen.
Yeah.
So it didn't really come out that great. I think I got a video of like a Lion King song playing in the background, and it was on a USB. Oh my God, I think I've lost the USB. Yeah, that's crazy. But I did get a bunch of pictures of her like in 3D.
Yeah. One thing that I also forgot to say, and this is like the weirdest thing. So my due date was the 26th of December. And from the very beginning of my pregnancy, I was telling everyone my baby's going to be born on the 21st of December. I was like adamant that he would be born on the 21st, because I checked, this is going to sound so weird, but I checked the like lunar cycles, and the full moon was on the 21st. And my mum is a midwife.
Yeah.
And so she always, although it's not like, I guess it's not scientifically proven, but my mum has always said like a full moon brings a lot of women in. She was like, if we're on shift and it's a full moon, it's always very busy.
Oh.
So I just had in my mind like, oh, it's a full moon on the 21st, that's when he'll be born. And also like, I guess because I was kind of scared of having a Christmas baby, I was like, oh God, the 26th is so close to like Christmas Day. I was like, I don't want him to be born on that day, because that's such a like annoying birthday to have.
Yeah.
Like, who's coming to your birthday on Christmas? No one.
No one other than your mum and dad.
Yeah. So when it finally came down, I remember when I got to, I can't remember how many weeks, I was at work and I started to get these like horrific stabbing pains. Like, I don't know if you guys experienced it. It was like someone stabbing you down there.
Like that, upwards.
It was the worst pain. I was at work and I remember being like on the shop floor, and I just was like leaning over going, oh, and everyone was like, oh my God, are you okay? Are you going into labor? And I was like, no, it's just like these stabbing pains. And I asked my mum about it, and she was like, it's when the baby's head like brushes over your cervix.
Yeah.
It was a horrible pain. And I remember having like quite often getting Braxton Hicks contractions. And that was a weird sensation, because did you guys have those? Braxton Hicks.
It's like
it's like everything goes tight and tense, and I have no control over it, and I just have to wait for it to pass.
Yeah.
So that was like, I got that quite a lot. And then in like, I went on, I left for maternity leave literally like 3 weeks before my son was born. And I remember wishing like, oh my God, I wish I'd gone earlier, because it just got so uncomfortable at my work. And I was just like so heavy and just feeling so tired. And then when I, like in the week before I gave birth, I was kind of feeling like these random pains, but they weren't really that bad. And in retrospect, my mum's like, those pains that you were feeling in that week was like probably your latent phase of labor, and you just didn't realize.
Oh, wow.
So when I woke up on the 21st, I woke up, I went to the toilet, and then when I finished like peeing, I felt like more come out, and I was like, what was that? And I suddenly thought like, is that my waters? So I did what the midwife had told me, and she was like, you need to lay down for 10 minutes and then stand back up and see what happens. So I got back into bed, like my partner was still asleep. I hadn't even woken him up at this point. I got back into bed, I was like, just laying down. I laid down for a good 10 minutes, and then I stood up, and as soon as I stood up, the water just like gushed out. So I knew, and I was just standing there like it was dripping. I woke my partner up, and I was like, my water's just broke. And he was like, his response to me was so stupid. He was like, what does that mean? And I was like, what do you mean what does that mean? That means the baby's coming. So he was like half asleep. He had no idea what was going on. So I was like, you need to get up. And then I rang my mum, because my mum, she's a midwife, and she was she took care of me through my whole pregnancy. So I felt no pain. I felt completely fine. I rang my mum up. She was like, oh wow, you did actually go into labor on the 21st, like you said. And then she was like, you need to go into the hospital so they can check the waters to see if there's anything like dodgy going on there. So I was like, okay. I was living in West London, and the hospital that I chose was in Southeast London. So it was like an hour away.
Wow.
So, and I chose that hospital specifically because my mum works there as a midwife, and I wanted her to take care of me.
Yeah.
So I just was like, I felt absolutely no pain, no nothing. I didn't feel sick. I didn't feel anything. So I was like, let's get ready. We don't need to rush. Like, let's just pack a few extra things and we'll drive there. So I had to book we had to book a cab. So we booked an Uber actually. And I was like, fine. I felt absolutely zero pain. The moment we got into the car, I was like, we started to drive, and about 10 minutes in, I started to get unbelievably strong pains. And I knew that this was like an hour-long journey, almost an hour at least. And my partner had fallen asleep in the car. And I was holding, like the handle in the back seats. I was holding the handle and I was squeezing it every time I got a contraction. And I was trying to be like quiet because I didn't want the driver to think, oh my God, she's going to give birth in my car. So I just wanted to get to the hospital. Like, I was like, this was my plan. I need to give birth at this hospital. In the birth center, I chose a birth center rather than a labor ward because my pregnancy was low risk. Everything was fine. So I was able to choose a birth center. And then it started to get really bad, like the closer that we got. And then I remember like the driver, he couldn't find the entrance to like where we needed to get. And me in a huff, and I was getting so, like, I don't know if you guys, you must have experienced it, but I felt like I was raging. I was angry. Everything was pissing me off. And I was just like, get out of the car. I remember I said to him, I was like, let's just go. I was like, just get out, we'll walk. The second that we stepped out of the car, I was like on the main road, leaning on these railings, having a contraction. Everyone was looking at me and I just didn't care. And then I rang my mum up and I was walking up this road trying to find the maternity entrance. And I was huffing and puffing and I was like, I can't find it. How far up is it? I was really like, and she said to me after, she was like, the way you sound, she was like, it sounds like this is happening very quickly. Like just from the way I was talking to her on the phone and the way I was breathing. And she didn't want to say anything. So she, at that moment, she didn't say anything. But later on, she did. She was like, when you rang me, I knew I was going to miss the birth. And I remember thinking in the car and on the walk up, I just was like, I'm not having a natural birth because this is so painful. If this is just the beginning, like I was imagining that I'm going to be like 0.5 centimeter dilated.
Yeah.
And it's this painful. So as soon as we got there, I was expecting the woman to be like, oh yeah, this is just the beginning, blah, blah, blah. I got there, she examined me and I was like 4 centimeters. And then I was like, I need to go to the toilet. I went to the toilet, had a huge contraction. It was like the most painful one. And I came back out and I said to her, I was like, it's really bad. I was like, that one was so bad. She was like, let me check you again. She checked me again and I was fully dilated in like one contraction. Oh. And I was telling her, I was like, I can feel the pressure of the head. I was like, I can feel it. Because she was trying to get me in a wheelchair and I was like, I can't sit down because I feel the head there. I was like, I'm not trying to squash the baby's head. So she was like, just kneel on the chair. So I kneeled on the chair and I'm like wheeled into the room. So it was really nice. Like it was a really big room. There was like a double bed in there it had its own bathroom. And then I had a birthing pool because I had asked for a water birth. And I was like, at this point, at least I had accepted like, okay, like it's this painful because I'm quite far into the labor now. So I'll be all right. And then I basically they gave me like a beanbag. I was leaning over the beanbag and my partner was just rubbing my back and they gave me the gas and air while they filled the pool up. And I just remember feeling so out of it on the gas and air. I enjoyed it so much. It was like it was the best.
Amazing.
I was like,
it was like crack.
Yeah, and then but I don't know if this is like normal, but you know when you have the gas and air and then you talk after,
your voice could really
yeah, like my voice sounded like a demon voice, and I was just like, oh my god. And then I'm just like I remember I had my eyes shut for the whole time for some reason. It took me to like a weird.
It's gonna end in 2 minutes.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
Okay. It took me to like a weird place. And then I remember like, because I had my eyes shut, but I could still see like light. Anyway, when the pool was high enough, they were like, quick, you can get in now. And I got into the pool. Unfortunately, because my mum, she lives really far away, she wasn't able to come in time. But luckily, like my sister happened to be in London. And so my mum said to her, you're already in London, just go straight away because she was like, I need someone to be with Mia just in case like something happens. So I didn't even know my sister was coming. She just appeared in front of me. And then I was like, oh, you're here. And I remember being like really lucid during labor. So like in between contractions, I was just talking like normal. And then it would be really painful. And I remember like saying really silly things. Like I was telling the midwives, like, the baby's gonna come out. And they were like, we know. We can see what's happening, Mia. And I was just like, it's the head. And because I knew like that labor would be a blur, I asked my partner to like film it.
Nice.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Sorry about that. I had to start a new one and record. But yeah, so the birth, you was telling us about how you went to the toilet, had that really insane contraction, and
Yeah,
then
and then I was like fully dilated, ready to go, and
wow.
then I had to wait for the pool to fill up. So until it filled up, I was just like leaning over a beanbag. My partner was like rubbing my back. I was having the gas and air. I loved the gas and air. It actually really helped a lot. But do you know what? I don't, because I had such good knowledge, because my mum is a midwife. So all through my pregnancy, I feel like I had a really positive like outlook on it, and I wasn't fearful, because any question I ever had, I was able to ask my mum. So when I went into to giving birth, I wasn't like, I was just focused on my body and how I felt. I wasn't thinking about, you know, like how sometimes you'll go to antenatal classes and they'll be like, this is how you need to breathe during, and like stuff like that. I had absolutely none of that in my mind. I was just like, and honestly, I really don't think the breathing that people teach helps, because for me, when I was giving birth, everything else was a blur, and I was only focused on my body and what I was doing, and like the pain I was feeling. I wasn't thinking about, oh, I need to breathe like, I don't know, whatever the breathing techniques are. There was none of that. There was no like, it was all very instinctive for me, and that's kind of what I focused on. I wasn't thinking like, this is what I should be doing, or this is how I'm meant to do it, or this is the best position for me to be in. I just went with like how I felt in the moment and what my body felt like.
Wow.
Because I remember at one point, one of the midwives told me to like sit back in the pool because she needed to just listen to the heartbeat. And as soon as she made me lay back, it just did not feel good. And I was like, I can't stay like this. And then as soon as I felt a contraction coming, I had to move and get back into a position of like leaning forward. So I started to think like, there's no way I could have given birth like laying down, because it felt like getting in the water, I have to say, was a massive like relief as soon as I got in.
You felt weightless.
No, I like, yeah, and it's they say that the water is like nature's epidural, because it really helps with like the pain relief.
Oh.
And I remember thinking like, it can't be that good, but it really helped, and it felt a lot better than it did when I was out of the water, like using the beanbag. As soon as I got in, it felt much better.
Wow.
And so I only had the gas and air. I didn't get any other pain relief. But to be honest, I was so far along, I wouldn't have been able to get an epidural anyway.
Yeah.
A
water birth, that's literally what I wanted, and it didn't go that way at all.
Yeah, that's the thing as well. My mum had always said to me, she was like, you can't plan your birth. She was like, you can have things that you hope to have or that you would like, but you can't be like, I'm gonna have a water birth, or I'm gonna have, I don't know, like I'm gonna do hypnobirthing or whatever. She was like, you have no idea what will happen, like anything could happen that changes things. She was like, your baby could be in the wrong position.
Yeah.
You could an infection, like a urine infection, you could get meconium, like anything could happen that stops you from having like your ideal birth experience. And what I noticed as well is like, a lot of people think because I had such a fast labor, they're like, oh, you're so lucky, it was so fast for you. But with having a super fast labor comes a lot of other problems, because my baby literally just shot out of me. There was no, it was like a couple of pushes and he was out. And I remember the moment that he came out, and I grabbed him and pulled him up, and I was in shock. I was like, it was almost like I didn't believe what had just happened.
Wow.
And like when I watch back my birth video, as soon as he comes out and I'm holding him, like me and my partner are like, oh my God, he's here. And I just leaned back and I was so exhausted in the water. And then I was like, oh my God, I need a drink. Like I was so thirsty. And then they said to me, because everything's okay, like the baby was okay, you can sit in the pool for a few minutes and relax, but you do need to deliver the placenta. So I was like, let me just chill for a minute. And then when I got out, and they were, I can't remember, but I'm sure they gave me, like, they give you an injection to help the placenta deliver fast. And I think they were like, do you want it? And I was like, well, yeah, just give it to me. Like, I want this out as quick as possible. So I had like my sister in the room, my partner in the room, and then a couple of the midwives. And they gave me like this weird seat with a hole in it. And they had like a bag underneath it. So my partner had the baby like skin to skin. He was sitting down and I got out of the pool, like dried off. I had like a towel wrapped around me and they were like, you just sit there. And then when you feel the contraction, just push. So I was sitting on like this weird little chair with a hole in it and a bag inside the chair. But you could see what my sister said to me, because she's a weirdo and she sat opposite me so she could see everything. And like blood and stuff doesn't freak her out for some reason. So she was like, she saw what happened. So I was sitting on this thing. I had my eyes closed because I knew that I didn't want to see whatever it was that was about to come out. So I had my eyes shut for the whole time. And when it finally happened, it felt like a huge, just like that loads just suddenly came out. And I heard it like hit the floor. It was this, honestly, it was disgusting. Like the sound of this thing like dropping out of me was so like, that's why I had my eyes closed. I was like, I don't even want to like look. My sister watched the whole thing, and to this day I'm like, why would you do that to yourself? Why would you want to watch like what happened? So,
you know, I would be so childish. I'd be laughing at like, just the sound of it.
Yeah, like, and even like my son's dad said to me, God, the noise. He was like, the noise. He couldn't see anything because he was like on the other side of the room, but he was like, the noise was horrible because he knew what it was.
Oh my God.
So after that, I was like, I got like cleaned up. I got into the bed. And then my mum hadn't arrived yet. I was still waiting for my mum to come. So it's like, yeah.
How long did all of this take from when you left the taxi?
Oh my God. So my whole birth from like the active stage of labor was like 90 minutes.
No.
Yeah, it was so fast. I think I only pushed 2 times and the baby had come out. But when my baby came out, his arm was like that. So he came out with like so I basically birthed the head and like an elbow at the same time, because he came out like this, like with his arm up over his head.
And because it was so fast, like the midwives and the nurses, they can't even like reposition him.
No, yeah, it was like, this baby's coming, he's just going to come out how he's coming out.
Did you tear?
So, yeah, so I had a tear. I had to get stitches. The tear, and this is like the absolute truth, I found getting stitches worse than the actual labor.
Yeah,
the getting the stitches was the most horrible thing.
It is.
Having also, like, I remember this woman stitching me up, and I started telling her, I can feel that. She was like, oh, let me put a bit more. She injected some more anesthetic in, and then she continued, but I could still feel it.
Yeah.
They gave me gas and air. So yeah, so I gave birth to the placenta. I felt like it was a lot. Then I'm going straight into being stitched up. So then when I finally, no. So when I finally get back into bed, I'm like holding my baby and I'm chilling. And then I said to the midwife, oh, I need to go to the toilet. So I stood up. And like, this was one of my mum's colleagues, and she was I think she was like the head midwife or the manager. And so I trusted all of them because they were my mum's colleagues. And I got up, and suddenly I just felt like I was going to pass out. And so I was holding on to this woman and I couldn't hear anything. I'd gone deaf. And I remember telling her, I can't hear you and I can't see you. I was like, I can't hear anything. And then it was kind of a blur. I think I passed out, and I remember like they put me in a chair. It was literally like you know those like office chairs that have wheels on the bottom. They sat me on one of those, wheeled me into the bathroom, like opened the window to get me fresh air. And then when I finally like woke up, they gave me some juice, like sugary juice. And then I got straight back into bed. And I remember like when that happened, obviously, because I was just out of it, I didn't really realize, but they'd like pulled the emergency bell. All these people came rushing in. They brought like the emergency trolley. And then my mum arrived. And so the first thing that my mum saw was the emergency trolley outside of the room. So her colleague was like to her, don't panic. They're like, she's fine. She's got back into bed now. Like she got a bit like faint and whatever, like she's stable now. I got back into bed. And then I remember just saying to my mum, like, and this was like, my mum wasn't at work that day. She was on a day off. So I remember saying to my mum, like, I just really don't feel good. Like I feel really weak. And she had to, so like my family came, everybody came to see the baby. And then we stayed overnight in the birth center. And the next day, my mum came in because she was working, and she came in and I said to her, like, every time I move or I get up, I feel like I'm going to pass out. And then she decided to do like my obs or my observations. She took like my heart rate, my blood pressure, all of that stuff. And I think my blood pressure was like through the roof. And then my mum was like, this is crazy. Like, why has nobody come to check you? Because in the nighttime, nobody really checked me. Oh. And so my mum was angry. She was like, how have you people not, like, these were her colleagues. She was like, how have you not picked up on this? So anyway, I ended up having, the midwives that delivered my son, they estimated my blood loss at something like 300 milliliters. But my actual blood loss was 2.5 liters. So I needed to get a blood transfusion. And this is why I was like getting really sick and dizzy and passing out. So I was like left for 24 hours.
You died.
They were like oblivious to it. And maybe because I was so calm and I was like, I feel okay. I thought it was normal how I was feeling. And they did come and check on me. But at the times that they checked on me, I was like laying down. And the only time I really got faint and sick was when I stood up, like to go to the toilet or to do something. So, and then obviously like the next day when my mum came and she checked, it had been like quite a while since I'd given birth. And my heart rate was like, I can't remember if it was really high or really low, but it was like bad, whatever it was. And I literally got transferred straight away to get a blood transfusion. So that was like crazy. So I had the tear, I had the blood transfusion, and then I think I was only in hospital for like 2 days or 2.5 days, and then I got to go home. But the pain after giving birth was really like a lot. Everything was sore. I was like scared. I remember being so scared to go to the toilet because I was like, oh my God, it's going to be so painful.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
that's number 2 is wow.
Oh my God, I was so afraid. I didn't even want to do it. I was like, this is going to be so bad. This is going to be so bad. And then it wasn't actually as bad as I thought,
You have to just
but
breathe through it.
it wasn't nice. But yeah, we can always like find another time, and then if there's more you want to talk about, we can do that.
Let's
We
do
can
that.
do that for sure. We can do that. We can talk about postpartum if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One last
like
question.
that's another. Sorry, go on.
How old is your son now?
So he will be 4 in December.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely, like I would love to talk about postpartum with you as well, because I had a lot of, I'm actually still having issues since I gave birth, like health wise, because of how my birth went and things like that. So that could be like good to talk about as well.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much.
Oh, it was so nice talking to you.
Yeah, you too. And